Right. Now, what we're going to do today is looking more on interpreting the categorical data. I'll give you a couple more examples from the book, and this is how you should actually answer the questions in the exam. All right? So, by the end of the lesson, you should be able to analyze the table or column graph and provide a clear and coherent explanation with supporting evidence when discussing the association of data. All right? Now, go back to this slide that I showed you last week. I've included an extra point, all right? When you're discussing whether there's an association between two variables or not, it is important that you structure your response in a way that conveys this message through mathematical reasoning. I want to stress again the word mathematical reasoning is important, and you must always give the numbers. For example, the difference, or one is a lot higher compared to the other. All right, I'll show you what to do in a few minutes. Follow the steps below will ensure that you have everything you need to say whether two variables are associated or not. All right, think about first, define and determine which variable is the explanatory variable and which one is the response variable. It's so important that you know that. All right, if you don't know that, it is going to be hard. All right, the one good thing about this investigation that I have finished marking is that I can see that everyone knows how to use the calculator. I'm pretty happy with that. Everyone did use the calculator section really well. All right, a couple of little mistakes here, there, and everywhere, but that happens. All right, but that's good. So now, and also you do know what is the explanatory variable and what is the response variable. So I know that you do understand that. That's one good thing about the investigation. So then, next thing you need to do is either calculate the row or the column percentages. So if needs be, you may have to construct a stacked column graph. Not always, not all questions will ask you to construct a stacked column graph, but you may need to. All right? But you have to choose either row or column based on your understanding or based on what you determine, which one is explanatory and which one is the response variable. All right? Then discuss whether there's a change in percentages as you move across the explanatory variable. Again, mathematical reasoning, use numbers. I'm going to highlight the word numbers and pick the explanatory variables with the biggest difference, at least 5%. But I would say, I want to stress the word biggest difference. All right? You will see the reason a little bit later. And then you can determine whether there's an association between the two variables or not. All right? Again, only suggest there's an association. Do not be definitive. Right. Let's have a look. This is a question from your book. Example, I don't know what. Let me have a quick look. It should be on page... example 4. All right, example 4, page 11. Thank you. Example 4, page 11. All right, quickly read through, but I don't want you to look at the answer, please. I want to explain it very carefully. Now, this is pretty much an exam style question. I will point out to you why this is an exam style question. All right. Now, the very first question, which is the explanatory variable and which is the response variable? Let's read the question. In order to determine whether there's any evidence to suggest that natural hair color was associated with gender, a survey was conducted by hairdressers in a large city. So, suggest natural hair color associated with gender. So which one is the explanatory variable and which one is the response variable? hold that thought first. I'll discuss in a few minutes. Now, second question here, construct an appropriate percentage two-way table, two-way frequency table. This is where, in Wei's exam, all right, it will never tell you whether it's row or column, all right? It will tell you, it will ask you to construct an appropriate. So that you have to think about whether you're constructing row or whether you're constructing column, all right? And then use your table to construct appropriate column graph, a proportional column graph, which is a stacked column graph, and then comment. So these are generally what you would expect to do in the exam. And then when your comment is probably 2 or 3 sentences, will be probably 2 marks or 3 marks. All right? So now, the explanatory variable is gender, and the response variable is hair color. Read the question again. In order to determine whether there was any evidence to suggest that natural hair color was associated with gender. All right? So hair color associated with gender, you are using gender to actually explain, all right, the hair color. All right? So can you actually spend some time, now that you know that is a, you know that the explanatory variable is gender, do you construct a row or a column? Row or column? Which one? Row or columns? I'm not saying anything. Try it first. I'll give you 3 minutes to try it. All right, then I'll show you my answer. I'm keeping my mouth shut at the moment. I want you to remember what I taught you in the last lesson. So generally, okay, the other thing is sometimes with Wei's exam, they don't give you the column total or row total, and you have to look it up. You're going to work it out yourself. And I'm keeping my, like I said, I'm keeping my mouth shut for a few minutes. All right. So in the exam, definitely you'll be asked to construct an appropriate percentage two-way frequency table. Do your construction first and then check. All right. 1 more minute. At least do a couple of percentages, not all. Generally, you'll be given the table, I would say, to work it out. Okay. All right, I'll reveal my answer now. All right, so what I looked at is the row columns, because the male and female is actually the gender, is actually the explanatory variable, right? So here, this explanatory variable therefore row percentages. All right, we're not using the hair color, so therefore you can work out the percentages. Now, I should have written it down as whole percentages, but somehow I just wrote this down because I know those 2.5 added up, you'll end up with 101%, right? Because we are actually rounding out, that will be rounding up, this will round down, that will be 101, 100%. But it really doesn't matter. In the exam, just use a whole number because you can't plot. All right? And then you can work out what is the stack column, how you draw the stack column. This time, instead of writing everything there, what I've done is I've actually provided a legend. So this example of providing a legend. Really doesn't matter how you want to do it. Okay? Happy for you to write it there. The reason I provided a legend is like, for example, here. It's really hard for me to write down the ray and stuff like that. Now, let's look at this. Do you think there's an association? If you work through the explanatory variable, so looking at male and female, the percentages of black hair, the difference is 0%. The difference is less than 1%. The difference is less than 1%, that's 0%. So really, if you look at this situation, what I would say is the proportions of black and red hair are the same, 17% and 5% respectively for both male and female. Could have changed that to 18%. And then there are very little difference for the proportions of brown, 42.5% for male and 41.25% for female. And black hair, 35% for male and 36.25% for female. Really, I should have wrote down 43% and 41%. All right, it's really not much of a difference. The 2% really is not significant. All right, I did mention has to be at least 5%, and therefore there's no association between gender and the natural hair color. All right, this is how you analyze it, how you actually talk about it. Once you are used to looking at the percentages, all right, it will be, just 1 minute, Roma, it will be more natural. I'll give you a few more questions. You need to do some from club, and then tomorrow I'll work on some exam type question. Yep, Roma was.
When we're doing the tables and the column graphs, do we have like a table?
Yes, you should normally do get a table. Yep.
I thought he said that for the conclusion you can't draw associations.
You can, it's no definitive. You can't say that there's no association in this case. It's pretty clear that there's no association.
Okay.
This is pretty clear because the difference in, it's what I'm trying to say is do not have a suggest, we always suggest, we can say that they suggest, well, where was, hang on, let me go to this slide. All right, so here I say do not be definitive. Don't say that this is definite. Suggest that there's no association. But that one you can say that yes, that's no association. All right, that's pretty clear. In many ways, this would be very clear that there's no association. Did you find it? So there's no association with this one. All right, let's have a look at the next example. The next example is also from the book. This time, I don't want to show you my calculation yet. It's the next page. Hang on, where is it? It's example 5. Don't look at the answer. I want you to think first. 500 university students were classified in terms of the personal traits. Introvert or extrovert. And in terms of color preference, red, green, yellow, or blue. In order to see whether there's an association between these personality traits and color preference. The data was summarized and tabulated below. Now, you are expected to complete this sort of table. All right, this is taking it one step bit further. You will be asked to do that. Now, first thing you need to do is work out what this number is, because you are given 500 university students. All right, straight away you know this is 500. Of course, you then know this plus this equals to that, and you can work out that number, which is 200. Agree? And then you can work this one out. This take away that will give you that, right? And then 200 take away all this will give you that, and then you can work this one out. Keep on working backwards. Yeah? All right? Try that, please. Don't look at the answer, just try it. So you have to be able to determine the numbers in the table. And this one is just this take away that. All right? Pretty much you're going to use the table and work out. Again, see the question asks you to construct an appropriate percentage. Appropriate. Did not tell you what it is. Alright? So, now, this is the answer that I worked out. I hope it is correct. I'm pretty sure it is. I like these two examples because they are really exam type question. Very much so. One would ask you to give you all the data and ask you to work out the percentages and draw the stack column diagram. This one did not give you all the data. You need to work out the data, but did not ask you to draw the stack column. See? But if there will be question which will ask you to do all three. Alright? Okay? Now, let's think about this question here. 500 students were classified in terms of the personality traits and in terms of color preference. Okay? You want to see the association between these personality traits and color preference. So, do you work out the row or column? Part B. I'm not going to say that anything yet. Can you work on part B and C first, please? Quickly work on part B and C. All right, focus back for a minute. Which one is an explanatory variable and which one is a response? Okay, you are using your personality trait to explain the response. What color you like. All right. Now work. So therefore, we work on the row percentages. Correct. So this is the explanatory variable, row percentages. So when you do things like this, you must realize that you're going to ignore the column totals. You're just looking at the row totals, that's all. I'll review my answer in a few minutes. And then let's think about the reasoning. All right, let me review my answer. Oops. Now calculate row percentages. You can work out all the row percentages. I mean, again, I should have put that down as 10% and the other one as 12%. I will 10% and 12%. All right, everything adds up to 100%. So now let's think about how we are going to explain it. So you can, it depends on how many marks here. So if you've got 3 marks, all right, I would do, of course, this statement for sure, and then I'll take these two, the red and blue, and really ignore the green, because if three marks is 3 points. All right, so look at the proportion of color preference changes significantly as we move across the personality trait. It does change significantly because if you look at something like this, 63% of extrovert prefers red compared to 21% of introvert. All right, or you can say that 42% more extrovert prefer red. Right? So and then 43% of introvert prefers the blue compared to 12% of extrovert, or 21% more. Then I talk about green, but main thing is always pick the highest difference. All right, highest difference or the second highest difference when you actually depends on how many marks there are, and then therefore we can suggest that there's an association between personality trait and color preference. All right, this I differ from the book. The book say that there is a definite, and I just say that we can suggest that there's an association between personality trait and color preference. That's good enough. All right, make sure that you say that there's a gist and association. All right, I'm going to stop here. Should have plenty of exercises for you to do in class, and tomorrow I'll do some exam style question. Wednesday I will look at whatever you call it, sequences again. All right.